Okay.
Okay, welcome everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you'd be kind enough to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, I appreciate it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first order on our agenda tonight will be the audience of citizens. There's a sign-up sheet. We'll start with that. Mayor Mark Kaczynski is the first one to sign up.
All right, thank you, Chair. First of all, I just wanted to thank members of the commission for sort of volunteering, I guess, being forced to be here and to work on this. I know it's mid-August is our most favorite time to be here. We have no other fun places we could go. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to consider this so we can move it forward. And all I wanted to do was just basically summarize what the council voted on unanimously to send it to the commission. And we kind of broke it down to 4 questions. The first one was the VNA. We recognized what you guys had put forward to us, and we agreed that we would accept. Again, these are all suggestions to you. Obviously, it's up to you guys to decide, as you know. We would send that back to you as is. The VNA, as we know, we've had a lot of issues with the budget. We've tried everything to fix it. We're still trying to fix it. We have a great director now trying to work on it too. We've had consultants and we've done just about everything we can do, but there will be more to come, and the solution may not be in front of us yet, but it might be down the road. So why we want this is, as you know, in what you sent to us, it will sunset out of the charter only if we come up with an ordinance that will take jurisdiction over from the charter. And that really would only really work on that if we come up with a solution. So right now we don't really have a necessarily viable solution. I mean, we're working on things to reduce the amount that goes over the budgeted amount for the VNA every year. But if we come up with the solution, we'd probably work on an ordinance. So then the VNA would be controlled by the ordinance, obviously, and hopefully it would fix some of the budget issues. But until we have a viable solution, the plan, at least with this current council, is to just leave it in the charter. But we want to have that opportunity if a month from now, 6 months from now, we don't have to go through the charter revision again. That's the reason for that. And I know that's all been explained to you. The town manager would be, so that would be one question, suggestion. Second question, town manager. There's pros and cons to the town manager living in town. In Connecticut, nobody's very far away from the pulse of Berlin or anywhere. In Connecticut, we're all very close to each other. It does cause some recruitment issues for us. It has in the past. It has with, past councils, certainly with our council as well. I know a few years ago, someone I think was, right, I believe, get the guy's name now. He was I think he lived in Meriden, right? Everybody wanted him, and then we had to make a move from Meriden to Berlin. That doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. Understand the other side of that argument as well. If they're a town resident, they're going to understand what they're doing. But, the town manager is the professional that we hire to run the town day to day. The town council, the board of finance, and the elected officials are the ones that are responsible to the citizens. And of course, they report to the town council, the town manager. So that's why we thought that'd be a good change, and would help us with the recruitment all through Connecticut. Not out of state, of course. If someone's out of state, they would have to move. But if someone's in Newington or Rocky Hill or wherever they're in Connecticut, they're not more than an hour and a half away. So We thought that would just help us down the road. Not that Arosh is going anywhere. We don't want him to go anywhere. And we're happy with Arosh, and he did move to town. He bought a condo in town, as most people know. So, but going forward, it would be useful. So that would be question 2, or whatever order you guys want to do it. The third question we suggested would be the Board of Ed, which we wouldn't make any changes other than to the sentence, it's in 2-8. And we would just add on the ballot. So we would make that clear, that on the ballot, there'd be no partisan political affiliations listed on the ballot. That would just clear that up. Other than that, the whole process remains the same. No changes. Parties don't nominate. Parties can't financially contribute, and nothing changes in the Board of Ed section, but those 3 words.
You're saying from the original?
Yeah, in the original 2.8.
So no change from the original, not what we sent you then.
Correct.
Okay.
So yes, so completely changed with what you sent. And our suggestion back is just that 2.8 section added in. It's in the middle of the paragraph there. Shall appear on the ballot in connection with the names of the candidates. So those 3 words would be our suggestion. That would be question 3, or whatever these 3 items, whatever order, obviously you want to put them as the questions. We added a question 4. So, we discussed this quite a bit. Really, when we started the charter revision process, we tried to keep it simple. We didn't want a lot of things cluttering up the ballot. We know from what happened last time when we had a catch-all question, it wasn't good because typically people don't read it, don't understand it, and typically they'll vote no, which won't solve some of the issues. Most of the rest of the issues in the charter are suggestions from staff and different folks to just kind of clean up a lot of language. But I think we felt that wouldn't be keeping it simple. If we added all those things, it'd be a lot. So our last suggestion would be in question 4, just some of the highlights we thought would be the most important. It still unfortunately came out to be, I tried to keep it to 4 parts, but I think we got up to 6. One is that change from the bid limits up, so it doesn't have to keep coming through the council or the Board of Finance, was from 10,000 to 25,000. We've tried to pass that for a while, just to make it easier, and that brings it in line, I believe, with state statutes as well. Again, these would be in any, if you wish to keep these, whatever order you want to put them in. The fire marshal removed from the fire department, so that's no change. So the first one's no change, the second one's no change, but we think it's important to have it on the ballot that it should be changed, as you guys have suggested. The third one is the fire department could be amended by ordinance. No change from what was presented. Again, what we're concerned with is at any point in time, we hope it's not anytime soon, but many towns are having trouble with getting volunteers. We're very fortunate now. We've been lucky. We can staff all 4 fire departments with volunteers. But a lot of towns, what they end up doing is hiring a couple of paid firemen at each station, or however their town is set up. And that would they get the equipment to the fire, and then the volunteers meet them. So it's not a full paid fire department, but it's a partial. And somewhere down the road, I think even from Jim Simons, the administrator, and the chiefs, we probably know we're headed that way, just because life has changed, society's changed, and it's difficult to have that many folks able to respond that quickly close to town. So that's why we thought that was important, and as you guys did. So we'd leave that the same. We'd just send that to the voters. We'd also, part 4, our suggestion is the Board of Finance members could serve on other boards and committees. No change to what you sent to us as well. Again, I don't see any reason why they would be treated any differently than the council or any other elected official in town. That doesn't make any sense to single them out. So our rationale for that. And there is expertise on the Board of Finance that when we create certain commissions, such as this one and other ones that we've created, for instance, for the new community center, it helps to have some of the expertise of folks that are on the Board of Finance. So I mean, that's a detriment to have that in there. We recommend that stays as you suggested it. Number 5, the collective bargaining must be presented to council. That's no change from what you had suggested. We'd leave that in and send that to the voters. And number 6 was the pensions, in that wording there. We'll get into the wording, but that's no change either. So there's no change from the council. So those would be the 6 parts of question 4. Again, a little bit more than I think we hoped would go to the voters, but I think those are all important to let the voters see them and make a decision on that. So that's what we thought, and that's what we sent to you guys, and we hope you consider all that and do the best you can with it. Thank you.
Sure. Go ahead.
So some of the other changes that were made. Oh, I'm sorry. Some of the other changes that were made, as an example for referendum votes, having the discretion of both registrars to reduce it to 1 polling location, that would not be included because there was some other language changes. So
there was a lot of there's a lot of other stuff in there, right?
Right.
I just think we're afraid we're going to overburden voters with many more parts because we did make that mistake last time. And
yeah,
last question, I forgot how many questions there were last time, but the last question was the catch-all.
Yeah.
And I think it's too much for people to read and digest. That's what, and the council, when we went into this, that was our philosophy. We had a couple issues. The VNA was really the number 1 issue for us, and we tried to keep it simple. But, while it's open, the language changes from, our town attorney, from town staff. We're all good changes, but just seems to be over.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear that these are the only ones. Okay,
that's our recommendation.
Yeah,
you guys can whatever you like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. George Miller's next on the list.
George Miller, 1231 Orchard Road. Just from a background perspective, I was actually on the 2016 Charter Revision Commission. I'm also a current member of the Board of Finance. Back in 2016, this is talking to the last question in the 2016 referendum, and I concur that we had a lot of stuff in there, kitchen sink, so to speak. The unfortunate part of it is there was some important stuff in there, very important stuff in there that unfortunately did not get passed. So if you do want to think about some other items that you think are critical, I would just urge you to make them separate questions. I know there's a hesitancy to add a lot of questions, but it adds clarity to what's being asked. And when you have a page and a half or 2 pages of miscellaneous all jumbled stuff, and you don't like one of them, you're going to vote no on the whole thing. And it was detrimental to some of the things we tried to do. One of those things we tried to do is and I want to just give you some thoughts on the VNA from things that I've learned over the last several years. First off, I don't profess to have any expertise or knowledge about how it operates, how it should operate. As Mark indicated, they've tried a lot of things. I've sat on Board of Finance meetings. I've sat through some of the meetings with the former director. She was on a good plan, but still there was a huge gap to close. And unfortunately, she ended up quitting and left us, needing to fill a position again, which is one of the problems that they're having is recruiting and retaining qualified people. And with the acute shortage of nurses and so forth, that's only getting worse, much, much worse. So the issue with the way that it's currently structured in the charter, it says you shall do these things, which means you must do these things. So if one of those items in there, the 2 or 3 or 4 items that they have to do is no longer viable, commercially viable, or maybe not even possible because you can't recruit the people, you're going to have to do it anyways, and you're going to do it at a continued loss. And I think that loss is going to get larger and larger the way that it is today. Last year, it was budgeted at $1.7 million, projected with a $900,000 deficit from the revenues. I think the revenue numbers were down even a little bit. Part of that retrying to structure and coming up with creative ways to gather more revenue is they basically expanded the scope of the communities they serve. So at one point in time, I believe when it was founded, it was a Berlin community service paid for or subsidized by Berlin taxpayers. They had to expand that region, and now it's more a regional VNA, and they support 9 other towns other than Berlin. think there's a little bit of an issue there with taxpayers somewhat subsidizing the 9 other towns they serve. I understand their logic for doing it. They're trying to get revenue in to meet their costs, but I think the current charter language really is a barrier for them in reimagining themselves. And personally, I kind of like the idea of what Mark and company, you guys were proposing to do it by ordinance. An ordinance is a lot easier to amend going forward as the world changes around us. I mean, if you look at what COVID did to nursing shortages and things like that, it's very difficult to compete with Hartford Healthcare, Trinity, Yale University, or Yale Hospital. And I think that's even going to get worse as these big, major 3 hospitals buy up more hospitals, and you see Hartford Hospital branching out all over the place. And we're trying to compete against that for visiting nurses services. So I think this is a really good idea. One of the messages I want to leave with you guys too, and I don't know if this is your challenge or your charge also, but I know when I was on the 2016 Charter Commission, one of the last things we had to do is how to present this to the public. Okay. We had to come up with a communication plan. And if you go forward with this particular change in the VNA, it's critical that you get the message out to the community. Make sure it's clear why you're doing this. It's not to get rid of the VNA. It's to allow the VNA to reimagine itself, to re-engineer itself now and going forward in the future. And I think it's critical. I really think if this change doesn't pass and get through, I think they're going to be in big trouble, personally. Thank you.
Those are the only 2 folks that signed up. Is there anyone else in the audience that'd like to speak? Is there anyone online that would like to tell us anything? Going once, going twice.
Hello, can I speak?
Okay, please.
My name is Julia Dennis, 115 Norton Road. Sorry, I can't be there in person this evening. I know I missed the last meeting, the town council meeting, but I do want to thank the mayor for the summary he just provided and the recommendations from the town council. Over the past 3 weeks, I have heard from a number of community members expressing their concern regarding partisan Board of Education. But I have been informing people that what the recommendation of the council was. This evening, I hope you guys do take the recommendation and the feedback, the recommendation from the council and the feedback from the constituents. And, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sam, do you want to speak?
Sam Lamaglio, 78 Hickory Hill Road. The visiting nurses served on the Board of Finance for 4 years is a major problem. I've been doing some physical therapy because I hurt my knee. The first thing the doctors recommend is Hartford Healthcare. They don't recommend Berlin visiting nurses. They set you up with Hartford Healthcare. I mean, you don't even have a choice unless they come, that's where you're going, to Hartford Healthcare, or you're going to Hartford Orthopedic Center. They send you to Hartford Healthcare. So I support this change because I think we're just going to be, like George says, we're going to be in big financial problems in the future. And I agree with George. You've got to sell it because senior citizens, they love the idea of Berlin visiting nurses. And when I served on the Board of Finance years ago, Citizen Nursing did just operate in Berlin, and we did turn over a profit. At the time, Medicaid, Medicare would pay. Now that the stuff they pay is so small. I mean, when I get the medications and stuff like that I have to get for my knees, I mean, the insurance pays very little on everything. Your co-pays are so high. So it's not, for a small town like Berlin, I mean, they got to reinvent themselves or whatever, just do it in Berlin, but we've got to figure out how we can get this passed and sell it to the seniors because they are nervous about it. I've heard them saying that, oh, we're going to get rid of the nurses. The mayor wants to get rid of the nurses. No one wants to get rid of the nurses. I don't think that's the plan. The plan is to just fix it so we can just move forward because Berlin cannot compete with Trinity or Hartford Healthcare or Yale, whatever. These guys are big boys and they can do it a lot cheaper and a lot better. And as far as the Board of Ed, I want to thank the mayor and the council to see the point that doing a partisan Board of Ed would have been a mistake in this town, and it probably would have defeated the charter, because people in town are really strong about their education and the kids' education, and actually what's going on in the world right now in the community, in the country, all this anger and out there, and we don't want to bring that anger into Berlin. I think we've got to just cool things down, keep the Board of Education the way it is, and see, you know, if people want to run for the board, just take a petition and run on your platform. And I don't think you have to be a Democrat, Republican. If you've got a good platform, and run. And if a lot of people are saying, well, parents deserve a right for their kids' curriculum. I've never had a problem, and I think parents that had kids in the school system never had a problem talking to the principal, superintendent on curriculum. So go and communicate. But the change, no. So I want to thank Charlie. I hope you would, you know, you were on the council, so I hope your caucus and everything, I hope you can just take the council recommendation, then we could just move forward and make some changes. And having the town manager live in the community, that was maybe 20 years ago, but now it wouldn't make any sense. So, I mean, you're on the right track. Just take the Board of Education thing out and you'll probably pass this. Thank you.
Peter Zaragoza, 158 Elwood Road. In regards to the VNA, I do agree with George to the point that it does have to be very clear in the messaging to the constituents and the people in the community about how it's going to appear on the ballot. I think as it is, or how you're discussing it, is rather confusing to the average voter, in the sense that, you know, it'll be sunset, or it'll go to the town ordinances or whatever. I don't think the average voter understands the potential consequences of that. Our charter currently requires that we shall fund a VNA. Potentially the ordinances, you know, removing it from the charter, having it on the ordinances, gives the town the ability and flexibility to manage it how they want, or to potentially say, hey, we need to reduce the size of it or increase the size of it or what have you. I think really what we need to convey to the voters is, does the town of Berlin want to be in the business of a visiting nursing association? Do we think our tax money should go to funding that? And I don't know precisely what the best way to convey that to the voters is, but I think that's the only way, the best way to convey it to them. And otherwise, I don't think people are even going to know what they're voting on. I don't think that that particular item will succeed because the verbiage will be rather confusing. In regards to the BOE, I hope that you'll follow the recommendation and just leave well enough alone. I think the constituents and the recommendation of the council speaks for itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please.
Hello, everyone. Raul Fernandez, 71 Whispering Brook. I'm also a member of the Board of Finance. George put it very eloquently. Something needs to be done. Was one of the bigger shocks that I had when I got to the Board of Finance was seeing the amount of losses for all these years. We just increased our mill rate. This was also be a cost saving for all the people in Berlin, not just the seniors, but everybody. In the Board of Ed, I have kids in school. It's a concern with all the parents, all our friends that we talk to. I think it would be beneficial for everyone, all the recommendation. Thank you for your time, guys. Ciao. Thank you.
Anyone else in person or online? I guess we'll close the audience of citizens at this point. Guess we're ready for discussion of the council's recommendations or any other ideas anybody has.
I have a minute time for the next item. So I just got those.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. Get it out of the way.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we accept the meetings of the minutes from June 13th, June 14th, and June 15th of 2022 for the Charter Revision Commission.
All in favor?
Aye.
The minutes are accepted. Sorry, Kate, I didn't mean to skip that. Good thing she's watching me. I guess we're ready now for the discussion. How's everybody feel about the recommendations from the council?
Again, I thank the council, for spending the time looking at the revisions that were made by the commission and coming forth with the recommendations after your July 26th council meeting. And thank you for the clarification, Mark, in regards to that last all-encompassing, because I wasn't sure if that meant we were deleting all the other language changes that we talked about. I guess my question in regards to the Board of Ed, and again, I think the citizens that spoke here at the commission meeting, as well as the town council, really probably made you think about leaving it as a nonpartisan Board of Ed. But I do have, I guess, a couple of thoughts in regards to the word on the ballot. I'm not quite sure why it would be needed. When I was at the July 26th town council meeting, I think, Mr. Mayor, you had indicated to provide clarification, but I think it's pretty obvious that the whole rhetoric and all the language in it indicates that no party affiliation is going to be on the ballot, and they will not be running and receiving the endorsement, nomination, and funding through town committees. My concern, and why I'm bringing it up, is I don't want to have any language in that particular section that would force anyone to think about whether or not it's a violation of the state statute. And maybe I'm just, maybe I'm wrong on that, but I just wanted to bring that up to make sure. I'm not even sure it's really necessary, and we could actually delete a question, to be honest with you. So I don't know how everyone else thinks about that.
Is it a problem with the state law, Mr. Attorney?
What statute are we talking about?
Yeah.
Any indication that would leave someone to believe that it's a partisan Board of Ed?
There's no such statute.
I don't, in our charter, any additional, I'm not sure why we need on the ballot. And would there ever be a discussion in the future surrounding, is that bringing concern to us now being a partisan Board of Ed?
The phrase partisan Board of Ed is a Berlin invention. You won't find it in the Connecticut General Statutes. The Connecticut General Statutes provide that boards of education are nominated and elected the same way that all other elective boards and commissions of municipalities in Connecticut are nominated and elected by the town committees through convention.
Right.
Doesn't say anything about partisan, okay? That's a Berlin invention that I never heard in 33 years of law until the last 6 months, okay? So there's two ways that you can elect a Board of Education. One is in compliance with the statute. The other is in reliance upon a special act from, I don't know, 50 years ago, 60, 70 years ago, whenever it was. The way that Berlin currently elects its board is to not have nominations, but to have petition. So having the phrase on the ballot in the charter does not somehow cause the Board of Education to be nominated and elected through the statutory process.
Okay.
Yeah,
I kind of want that on the record, whatsoever, so to speak, so that if, there's any inkling in the future, I think we're all clear as commission members that it will remain without a party nomination and endorsement and funding by the parties. It will remain.
I would think this would restrict it more, if anything.
Well,
the whole idea was putting on the ballot was to clarify things, because
I mean, the reality is that Julie Erickson running for Board of Ed, which I did, 3 terms. I could actually put a sign out that says Julie Erickson running for Board of Education and put Democrat underneath it.
Right.
The problem is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is if there's any endorsement funded by the Democratic Town Committee, that would become the problem.
It's just a funding issue.
Yes, it's a funding issue. Okay.
Yep.
And likewise, they could call the registrar of voter and say, Julie Erickson, what's her party affiliation? I see she's running for the Board of Ed,
Yep.
correct?
Public information.
Right. Right. So that's been in effect all along. You can find out someone's party affiliation either by the candidate identifying it on some kind of literature or signs. What about, I guess I have another question. What about a town committee, whether it be the Republican town committee or the Democratic town committee? Could they make a public statement saying, vote for Julie Erickson for Board of Education?
Well, again, you have to be careful, because if it's an expenditure, if it's a communication that's funded by an expenditure, then it has to be treated as such for SEEC purposes.
Okay.
Okay, because regardless of whether you're a petitioning candidate based on the special act that we're relying on, or whether you're nominated and elected, you have to have a campaign funding source. You're either being funded by a town committee, which you can't be if
Right.
you're a petitioning candidate, right? You're being funded by a slate committee, which you can't be if you're a petitioning candidate, or you're forming your own candidate committee. If you don't do any of those three things, you can self-fund your campaign.
Right.
But if a town committee is going to spend money on a sign, for example, or on a mailer that says vote for Julie Erickson, Republican, Democrat, whatever, then that's going to be a problem, because the SEEC is going to say, well, that's an expenditure to promote the candidacy of someone who's not on that slate. And therefore, it's going to be attributed to you. And the SEEC, if somebody files a complaint, is going to say you have to reimburse the town committee for promoting your campaign. It's just
Okay.
the campaign finance issue.
So it's
got nothing
really,
to
it's
do.
really all about funding.
Got nothing to do with how the candidates are nominated or elected. It's just a completely separate funding issue.
Okay.
One, because the way that you're nominated and elected, that's an election law issue. Okay. The
Mhm.
way that you fund your campaign is an SEEC issue,
Okay.
campaign finance issue.
So like a letter to the editor from the Berlin
Well,
Democratic.
that doesn't cost anything, so
Right.
that's fine.
So they could do that.
Sure.
A town committee could say vote
Sure.
for Julie Erickson for Board of Ed. Okay. How about like the colors on the signs as an example? If I was to put out the blue sign, blue and white sign, which is.
You paid for it yourself?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay. These are just things I want to make
Yeah,
sure,
sure.
because
That's
my
why,
knowledge is this has always been in effect anyways.
Of course.
And
that's why on the ballot to me clarifies it. You can do whatever you want, but not on the ballot. You follow me?
Yeah, what
it's a given.
Charlie's
I think
saying,
it's a given,
what
but-
Charlie's saying is right, because if your concern is that somehow by having the phrase on the ballot in the charter, it gives the impression that you, and again, I don't agree with this at all, because you saw the extensive revisions that Steve Mednick made
I know.
to come up with a Board of Ed that's nominated and elected per the statute. I mean, it's an enormous undertaking, right? You got to stagger it. It's a big deal. So I don't think anybody's going to say, oh, it says here that the party affiliation can't be on the ballot. That means they're going to nominate and elect. It's the opposite, like Charlie's saying, because if you were going to be nominated and elected in accordance with the statute, your party affiliation would have to be on the ballot.
Okay.
By saying no party affiliation on the ballot, you're further supporting what you're looking to do, which is make it
Yeah.
not party affiliation.
And that makes sense. I think though in the explanatory text, because it's going to be a question. More than likely, I'm assuming, I'm looking at the other commission members, that we want to make sure that that's clear.
The way to look at it
Because
is,
there'll be suspicion as you,
the way to look at it is party affiliation is, as you've indicated, public information. It can be disseminated in any manner consistent with First Amendment rights. It's just a campaign finance issue. You know, just because you're a petition instead of a nominating process, just because you're on the ballot through petition, doesn't mean that you get to, you're a candidate. And the statutory scheme in Connecticut is that candidates, regardless of how they became candidates, are subject to the SCEC regulations and Title IX of the general statutes. So you just have to make sure that you're complying with those campaign finance laws. But how, you can disseminate the fact that you're an R or a D or a U, whatever, you have that right, that you don't give that up by going this way.
Okay, so it's really a funding.
Yep, totally a funding issue.
Yeah, okay, I'm fine. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
This language guarantees it won't go to the ballot.
Yes, no, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying there's been so much, as we've heard through the commission public hearings, as well as audience of citizens, as well as, several times at the town council meeting, a lot of people were against it. And I just want to make
Well, that's
sure
why we
that
went
the
to the
explanatory
clarification.
text-
They didn't
Yes.
want the party affiliation on the ballot, so and it was kind of gray, so.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the explanatory
clarification.
text, I guess, is clear about that.
Okay.
And then just one other thing, and I don't know if it's a biggie or not, and I really appreciate the town council wanting to limit that combined number 4 question kind of thing, but and Attorney Mednick, I think you were the one that had mentioned it, the ACR, the acronym for the financial reporting.
I'm D'Onofrio, I'm not Mednick.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mednick. I apologize,
All right.
Attorney D'Onofrio.
Yep.
So wasn't there some financial report that they actually changed?
They changed the name of it.
Is that a big deal?
Nah,
We don't.
because
change-
no matter what we call it, it's, the finance department knows what.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it was just the acronym for the CAFR
Right. No longer
has
being
been
used, right?
determined to be something that's not appropriate. So they changed it from CAFR to ACFR. They changed a couple letters around.
I didn't know if that would be a problem.
Nah, I mean, look, everybody knows, everybody that needs
Okay.
to know what it is knows what it is, but it was just to be correct. It's not substantive, it's just a procedural thing.
You're good. June?
Julie, I really appreciate your conversation on the Board of Ed. I think I appreciate what the town council and the mayor have done and put back to our charge again to make decisions on. They originally gave us the charge to come and keep it simple and go forward. And I think, like the mayor had mentioned, that it kind of got out of hand a little bit and will be challenging for the community to look at all of those things that we originally set forward. I spent several hours yesterday at the voting at the VFW, and although we did a lot of public sizing of the changes and the locations, 6+ hours, there were still several people. I think I had over 40 cars that came, sometimes 2 or 3 voters in the vehicle. Some of them said, oh yeah, that's right, I think I'm supposed to go to Willard, or I didn't remember seeing anything. And I know that the registrars did a really good job. So I think having that recent experience does kind of apply to then what we're trying to do here. And if it gets overburdensome, they might not see it, might not read it, might not understand it, that we need to kind of keep it simple and hit on the things that are the most important. I agree with what the mayor has brought in conversation. I do like to keep the Board of Ed wording in there like they suggested. So I have no concerns with that. Just to emphasize, I like that the Board of Finance could be helpful to some of the committees if they're working on budgets or big projects. I think they have a lot to offer. And I think that's all I have to add with, but I would support it as the mayor has presented today.
Thank you. Mr. Veach, did you have anything to add?
I just being new to all this. Being new to all this, a lot of effort and time and everyone, it sounds like we're coming together on it pretty close. I mean, final votes will show. I'm naive to her how I guess selling it, the right word to use, to the public, if we're unanimous or we come to to the public, I hate to see all this effort and time just gonna drain because of, you touched kind of on what I was worried about, people just not knowing and not understanding. So as what, do the different parties support this publicly if they, when this comes out and in the past, and if they both parties see eye to eye on this, I'd like to see that maybe we can work hand in hand or whatever to really let the public know that this, we all feel this is a good thing.
I can tell you all the councilmen supported these recommendations.
You know, but as visible as we, I mean, if we can get together the biggest darn signs, whatever we can do to, you know, make sure.
I don't know what
bipartisan. I know. See, like I said, I've never been involved, and I don't know, but I hate to see this. Not every effort made.
It's a very good point. I don't know what kind of funds we can use for buying ads. I know the first thing the Britain Herald did was printed an exact lie of what was discussed at the council meeting. I mean, it's just absurd the way we don't have a newspaper. The first thing they told everybody was that we were trying to get rid of the VNA, point blank, which was complete false, you know, and they won't print a retraction. They just, yeah, it's sad. Yeah. So.
Are you done, Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay. There are ways you can do it. You can form a political action committee and you can get donations from both sides and they can go out and advertise. It's consistent with the state campaign finance system, which is SEEK. But you would have to be registered and at least disclose where the money's coming from. So I think that's something that the two town chairs could probably get together and discuss. I also want to thank the mayor and the council for what they did. The mayor and I actually had a conversation. He walked me through the discussions. I also had the same conversations with a couple of the councilors. I do appreciate that. I think a lot of what's contained in here is things that should move forward. I will be supporting them tonight. Like I had said previously, the Board of Ed was the big sticking point, and I've been in this town 50 some years. I know what it was going to do, and it really would have turned the whole thing on its head. So I'm very happy.
You're okay with the clarification?
Yeah, the clarification's fine. If we did nothing on it, I think it would be just the same. So either way, I'm okay with it. But if it comes out with the recommendations, I would vote for it. And Julie, thank you for the clarifications. I think those were important. It really comes down to getting what we can get passed so the town council, the Board of Finance, and others can do the business of the town.
I don't know if the town can fund any advertising or anything to promote. No.
Once the referendum is pending by state law, there can be no advocacy. There could be no public funds or public resources used, and SEEK's definition of advocacy is very broad.
Okay, that answers that question. So what do you have to,
like Joe said,
committees
a
or
PAC can do it.
Yeah.
And you know, individual public officials not using town resources, like you can't use a town computer.
The town committees.
But individual town officials can speak. Again, you have First Amendment rights. If you want to write a letter to the paper saying, please support the referendum approval on November 8th, you can do that. If you want to go on your personal Facebook page, you can do that. You can't use any town resources. That's the big issue.
And town employees have to stay out of it too. We just have to look to the lawsuit of what Cromwell's dealing with in the multi-millions of dollars. They found themselves in a little bit of trouble.
But that can't be utility rate.
Forgive me for being new to all this. It sounds like the members here are in agreement with the recommendations from the town council. Do we need a vote to accept those recommendations?
Absolutely.
Want to make sure you want it back.
I would appreciate a motion from someone and
a motion that we have a vote.
What you want to do is to just simply say, and it's on the agenda, is just simply say that you approve the recommendations from the town council with respect to the proposed charter revision. So move. Second.
Second.
All in favor.
All in favor? Aye. Motion's passed to accept the recommendation.
So what I'll do is I will take the last version of the charter, the one that went to the town council. I actually already did it, to be truthful. I'll just send this to Kate. So this is the version of the charter that what the town council recommendations that you just approved. So that'll go to Kate, and then Kate will send that to the council for their September 6th meeting. And then the council will send it to referendum.
So will the council develop the exact questions?
No, you will.
You will. When do we do that? Now.
Between now and September something. They have to go to the Secretary of State, what, September 8th? Yeah.
Please.
We're allowed to spend some money to put the actual change of paper, the actual question.
That's okay. So
No, you can, obviously we have to publish the proposed changes, and we also can produce with town resources explanatory text. That's not considered advocacy. Advocacy is defined by SEEK as any communication that a total reading would cause a reasonable person to believe that the author is urging approval or rejection of the question.
So commenting on that announcement that it was bipartisan and agreement, that'd be going too far.
Yeah.
You're talking about in a press release?
When you publicize it.
No. When you publicize it, it's just the questions.
It's just a question.
Yeah.
So by statute, I have to publish the changes in
exactly.
their entirety. So in 2016, it was quite lengthy. This is shorter. It would just be the areas that are changed. And as Attorney D'Onofrio mentioned, the question. And then I've done I've already done the summary, but on September 6th, it will also the council will instruct me to do the explanatory text. And yes, Attorney D'Onofrio will help me. I'm going to just say, if I can, and I don't mean to, but I want people to know this. I've never had corporation counsel who has done so much work on charter revision. And I have been doing charter revisions since 2003 here in this town. And it's the first time I've had so much support from our corporation council.
Thanks, Kate.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you.
So my question is then the questions go to the council on the 6th as well then?
Yes.
So do we need another vote to send it to the council?
You have to talk about how you want the questions formed. You know, there's certain criteria which the question will appear on the ballot in quotes, and it will begin with the word shall, and it has to be yes or no, not multiple choice, or if you don't like this, can you pick this? No. So those are the directions from the statute. And I believe that I'm thinking out of turn maybe, but Attorney D'Onofrio might be able to help you with how to word some of this.
Please.
Yeah, I mean, look, the way that the council presented this, if you look at the minutes of the meeting or even the summary of the action taken at the July 26th council meeting, you know, they've got V&A as one question, the town manager residency requirement change as a second question, the Board of Ed change, that 3-word change as a question, and then as the mayor outlined, 6 items in question 4. You know, I mean, I think that approach makes sense. There's not really anything in question 4 that you would break out as a separate question. I know a lot of people really want that bid limit increased to 25,000, but to be honest with you, if question 4 failed, then I would just tell the council to do an ordinance because the statute says you can do it by ordinance. So, you know, that should be accomplished. It's consistent with state statute. So whether that question passes or fails, that bid limit can be addressed. And I think, you know, the other three, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Attorney D'Onofrio, so for that last question, the explanatory text though would specifically identify what parts of the charter were being changed. So
Exactly.
it could be just shall the general recommendations of the charter be changed?
Yeah, we'll reference the sections.
So the voters will know.
Yeah.
Specific language that's going to be changed, those 6 items.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So just based upon what he just said, do we just want to take that all together so that's not a stumbling block for down the road? I mean,
Well, it's faster now. See, if you do it by ordinance, we gotta write the ordinance, then you gotta have a public hearing. Let's just, I would say let it
It's in the charter right now, the 10,000.
I know, but what I'm saying, I think what Joe's
Well,
saying
we
is
could
should we
change
take it
that
out
by
and go
ordinance?
to the ordinance,
I think it's simpler to leave it in, yeah.
you know?
Okay, I was just
Well,
trying.
we gotta notice a public hearing and
Okay.
it'll take us just as much time doing it by ordinance as
Okay.
it would if it passes on November 8th.
I guess I was just thinking I'd hate to see the volunteer fire department thing.
Yeah, right.
Go down because people are looking at dollar signs and saying, oh, that's too much money to allow them to do. If you took it out, maybe it's the waters are just a little
Yeah,
less
I
muddy.
mean, we'll say in the explanatory text that the statute, the Connecticut General Statutes provides for a bid waiver for 25,000 and below. So this proposed change aligns the charter with the statute.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of, listen, state, you know, from being in the legislature, the state for a very, very, very long time, the bid threshold was $1,000. And then I went to 7,000 and it was like, oh, but you know, what could you even buy for $7,000? Paper clips, you know? So even 25,000 is still a very, very low. I'm a pro public bidding guy, but there's an awful lot of money that gets spent on publishing ads for copy machines and stuff. So.
So I support leaving it in for listed in that last question. I think since we're all kind of on board in the same direction with our conversations and our contacts and how we present it and with the explanation, it might just go through. It might be a start.
Especially if the town committees try to work together and communicate. Yeah.
Attorney D'Onofrio, is there any words that we have to contain, and have you done any just sample what you think you could recommend to us as questions? I mean, from my experience, I could guess, you know, shall the whatever be altered within this charter, or shall the charter reflect, but you'd probably have a better handle on.
Yeah, I mean, you would do something, for example, on the residency requirement, shall section 5-1 of the charter be revised to eliminate town residency as a requirement for the town manager position.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
You know, shall the words on the ballot be added to the whatever sentence it is of 2-8.
Yeah, simpler.
Now the VNA is the hard one because it's like people get mad. I get mad at lawyers all the time because they write sentences that are like paragraphs and there's no punctuation. So if you were going to really try to capture what's in that question, it would be like a 50-word question, but we can't have a 50-word question. We need to do it in like 10 words or less. So I need to think about that one a little bit more and come up with language that really conveys that it's really a question of, you know, should the provision of public nursing services be provided by ordinance if there is a better alternative to Berlin VNA. But that's not how we're going to say it, but that's essentially what you're trying to get across to people. It's not, shall we eliminate Berlin VNA as the provider of, because that's not what it is. There's a sunset provision. So the sunset provision isn't triggered until the ordinance is passed, and the ordinance isn't going to be written until they have another alternative. I don't think they're anywhere close to having another alternative. So we really, what we want to convey is, you know, should section 817.1 be revised to provide the town with an option to provide public health nursing services via ordinance rather than through the Berlin VNA, something along those lines.
I think that was pretty, makes sense. Yeah.
That's pretty good. Attorney D'Onofrio, would it be better instead of saying public health services, actually say Berlin VNA? Because people are familiar with that.
In what part of it?
In the question, I love the question that you just came up with. Our secretary got it.
Public, I mean, right now there's a requirement that we provide public health services, okay? And the manner in which the whole issue with the charter is that it says shall be provided by the Berlin VNA. If it said, you know, shall be provided by the Berlin VNA or such other agency or provider as designated by the town council, it would be fine. But the problem is it doesn't say that. And so, you know, 6 years ago, I went to a Board of Finance meeting and the question was, can we defund the Berlin VNA? And I said, no, because we have a charter obligation to provide that service. And so the Board of Finance said, okay, we have an obligation to provide the service, but we don't have an obligation to fund it, which is, you know, it's one and the same, because then you get into liability to the patients because the patients all have rights under federal law. So really it's a question of, you know, how do you provide that service? So I think a question that conveys, you know, the question of amending the charter, revising the charter to provide the option of providing the service via ordinance rather than the status quo. I think that's probably the right way to couch the question so that people understand that what they're voting for isn't the elimination of the Berlin VNA, but the creation of flexibility via an option, an alternative way of providing the service. And, you know, I look at a lot of charters, not just the towns that I do work for, but this is one of those things where in a moment in time, you make a policy decision that this is the best way to provide the service, and you're not thinking that you're ever going to want to change it. But, you know, the way that my brain works is things change, you know, and you don't want to have to open up the charter and spend hundreds of hours of time on charter revision just to give yourself flexibility that you probably should have had all along. So I like this structure. I think that by saying, you know, because originally we started off saying, are we going to put a date in there? And we said, you know, we really can't put a date in there, because what if you put a date in there and you still don't have an answer by then? Then what do you do, right? So I think, you know, having a question that just focuses on, should we revise this to create that option, is the way to go.
You getting clarity on the questions?
No, I just have a question on number 4 that has to do with, and that just be a general question.
Yeah, it's an omnibus question. I mean, we're just gonna have to say, you know, we're just gonna have to word it very broadly. We'll reference the sections and then just rely on the explanatory text.
Yeah, it's just that, but all that language is gonna make it very wordy.
No, good.
And you have to be careful as far as how it is.
I mean, I could write a question that does all this in probably like 50 words. And you could look at it, and if you think it's too long, then maybe we'll do that. Yeah, maybe we'll take a look at both.
Simpler the better.
No.
So from 2016, I'm just looking, I know Kit, you had shared this with us earlier on. That last question said, shall the proposed general revisions to the town charter be adopted? And then the explanatory language got into the four additional pages of changes. In this case,
Yeah, so that's why, number one, the mayor is saying now, and council is to not, even though a lot of the work that you guys did was valuable and important, is let's not create more issues. That question really people got bogged down with it. Right. And in a lot of towns, that's one single question. They don't break out all these different things. And we've had that question on the ballot before in the past. So it got down into too much in 2016. And, I mean, if Attorney D'Onofrio can come up and we can tweak, and of course I'll work with him, is to tweak the question so that we get the most of the information, the bulk of it that people understand is to affect the fire marshal and the fire department and these other things in good ways and to do it. We want to be as clear as possible, but not. What the Charter Revision Commission has done so far as recommendations on the question, is that enough right now?
Yeah.
That it will be fine tuned?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, we'll circulate it to the commission before we send it to the council. And if anybody don't have an illegal meeting by email. So we'll send you the questions. And then if you have comments, just send the comments to Kate and I and don't CC each other.
So I'd be very cautious about not having meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just playing for a minute here and trying to keep it in a way that people will understand it and yet capture what we're doing. And I don't know if I'm close. I'm just reading it to myself now. And I just came up with shall section 8-17(1) of the town charter be removed and the services currently provided by the Berlin VNA be allowed to be adopted by ordinance.
I think it's appropriate if you want to send that to Attorney D'Onofrio.
Yeah, you guys can send me anything, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. The idea here is always, you know how it is when you write a letter or something, the start of it, you can always tear it apart and put it back down.
Yeah.
It's the start that's hard.
The only problem I have with that is we're not removing it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? The sunset is triggered
when
by the ordinance.
Maybe.
So it may never be an ordinance.
All right.
Who knows? Maybe Berlin VNA gets their loss down at 200,000 a year, and the Board of Finance and the Town Council says, "Oh well, based on the available alternatives, we think this is as good as we're going to do. We'll just have to live with the loss."
And in all honesty, everybody I've talked to offline, from Board of Finance members to Town Council members, have all said exactly that we're not trying to end it. We're just trying to find a way to make it work.
That's what we have to communicate to the public.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep, you bet.
Now, just for clarification, do they need to have another meeting to adopt the question, or is this guidance enough?
I think what we should do is we can circulate the questions, and if people feel, hey, this is fine, we don't need to meet. If you guys want to meet after looking at the questions and say, geez, this isn't what we had in mind, let's have a meeting, then we'll have a meeting. We have time, kind of. Okay.
Right.
And Kate, we still have the flexibility to do it by Zoom, right? Was that extended?
Yeah, it was.
So it could be a quick 15-minute Zoom.
Made permanent.
Yeah.
No.
But that's only if any of us object to the way the questions are written. Okay, so please review them when you get them, and if there's concern, let Attorney D'Onofrio or Kate know as soon as possible.
So I assume that if there are additional suggestions or kind of the wordsmithing that may be made by commission members, that you'll get that back out to the full commission again. It'll kind of be a back and forth email.
Yeah.
But any responses should just be to you and Kate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what I'll do is just, what I've been doing with the charter, redline them, and Kate and I'll circulate questions. And then as I get edits, I'll redline and then circulate it to the commission. I mean, if you could let's do a little bit of a timetable here. I would say if you would get us, we'll get draft questions out to you. What's today, Wednesday? Get draft questions out to you by next Monday. And then you get us your, what date is that? The 15th? And then you get us your edits by the end of the week.
Right, so that means that we would get questions out to you by Monday, the August 15th, and concerns or problems, you would have to respond to us by August 19th. And I'm going to stay on
the 19th.
Well, I'm okay.
Just gonna have to alter that.
I'll have my computer.
I'll take care of it. No worries.
Every time I go on vacation, there's an issue. All right, I'll bring my.
I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it.
I know.
So yeah, we'll get the draft questions out by the 15th. If you get your comments by the 19th, then I'll get, I'll mark it up, and 19th of Friday, I'll get comments out like on that Monday, the 22nd. And then you guys will see what they look like. And then we could maybe have one more round. And then by the end of that week, which is like the 26th, then we'll be done. And you'll be able to send it to the council before I go on vacation. Then I'm back on.
So if there's no comments, we're good. If there's no.
Yeah, if everybody says, I mean, I'm sure there'll be comments, because this is not, it's an art, not a science, There's no there's no magic in the words. It's really how you feel. You guys know your constituents better than I do. How the messaging is. That's really what it comes down to. It's all about messaging, right? Do you feel like this question captures the message that you're trying to send with the revision? And I think the only one that there's really a messaging issue is on the VNA. The rest of them are just text.
So the questions are the only thing that you're really sharing with us. The explanatory text that will be published will come afterwards, because that's really where you kind of get into a little bit of the minutia of what it means, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
The council has to authorize that.
Yep.
They would authorize it.
Yeah, explanatory text by statute gets approved by council and the town attorney. Not you guys.
And
you're off the hook.
So Charlie, I know at some point you're going to call for the motion to adjourn, but before we do this, I just want to say, and I've been at this a long time, we all came in with very strong opinions. We had not really contentious meetings, but we're all passionate about the positions. But to see how the town council got involved, others got involved, and we all kind of came up with what's fair. I think a lot of us aren't walking away with everything that we wanted, which means it was a fair compromise. So I think putting this forward to the public in the way we are makes sense. And I appreciate all the work people did. It really was a lot of work, and
thank you.
It was good.
I want to thank all the commissioners for helping me and forgiving my ignorance and how this operates. I got stuck in it in the middle and no experience. So thank you so much for all your help, especially Kate and Attorney Nafia. It meant a lot. And, hopefully we're helping the town move forward. We're doing business.
I'd like to go ahead and back what Joe and Charlie both said, in addition to also bring in the town members that took their time to come in and speak, both for the town open forum as well as our commission open forum. And again, thank you to the attorneys and Kate and our secretary. So it's just really been great. I appreciate it. And like you said, Joe, we have strong opinions, we have ideas, but in the end, we kind of work together to help the town in our goals with that. So thanks to the town council for bringing back what their suggestions were.
Likewise, I don't want to be redundant because I totally agree with what everyone has said. And it's really, painstakingly been a pleasure to be a part of the process. I learned a lot as well, Charlie. So don't feel that you were the only naive one. And I apologize for a lot of the questions and things I asked, but I wanted to be clear because this is an important document. for the town, and we want to make sure that we have asked all those questions. I didn't want to go home one night and say, oh, I should have asked this, right? So I appreciate everyone's patience with that, appreciate everyone's opinions that were brought forward by the townspeople. Certainly appreciate you, Kate. You were amazing, as well as Attorney D'Onofrio and Attorney Mednick, who helped tremendously through this process. And of course, our secretary, who takes the most detailed minutes. I'd like to hire you because you really took great minutes. Thank you so much. And to every commission member, thank you for all that you did.
I guess I gotta throw
one more.
It's the first time I've ever been involved in anything like, so I great learning curve for me. And as you said, it was nice to see that we came to a compromise, not where we all started, but what we think is mutual beneficial or at the will of our residents. And I just hope Charlie appreciates how I dumbed myself down to make you look good.
Thank you.
It wasn't easy.
Thank you.
Please. Motion adjourned.
Second. All in favor? Aye. So move. Thank you.
What's that? Oh, I talked too much.